Hey guys, welcome to today's video, and as you saw in the title, that we are going to be ranking presidents on their political party if they were forced to join one today. First, let's check out our partner channels. Also, by the way, it is I would like to do a few things, say a few things. We are not considering the factor of liberal Republicans and conservative Democrats. So if you are on the right, we are considering you a Republican. If you are on the Democratic side, left, you are going to be considered a Democrat here. I'm talking to all you presidents. Let's begin. George Washington was actually very, very hard, but in the end, he is a conservative independent. Very barely, though. Oh, by the way, what I mean by conservative independent is an independent who leans Republican, but they are still an independent. Like, they could vote Democrat, but they lean Republican. It's like they're an independent who leans Republican. Meanwhile, John Adams over here, he was a liberal independent, so leaning Democrat. Thomas Jefferson, he was also a conservative independent. These were conservative times, so please keep that in mind. Most people would have been a conservative. James Monroe, he was also, I'd say, a conservative independent. So yeah, as I said, at first there were quite a lot of conservatives. John Quincy Adams, liberal independent. Then there was Andrew Jackson, who was actually quite left, if you didn't know that. He would be a moderate Democrat today. Van Buren is also would be a moderate Democrat today. William Henry Harrison would be a conservative independent. So far so good. Oh, John Tyler, he'd be quite extreme. So, John Tyler, you're extreme Republican, you wiggy boy. James Polk. So what we can learn from this is that Whigs are more. Polk is a liberal Democrat. As I was saying, Whigs are conservatives. That's what we can know from here. Zachary Taylor, conservative independent. Millard Fillmore, also conservative independent. Franklin Pierce would be our first moderate Republican here. Then we have James Buchanan, who would also go along. So as you can see, as the times go along, our presidents start getting more and more extreme. Abraham Lincoln, this might upset some people, but he is a liberal independent, just like Washington may upset the people. Please consider this is all just a thing. Andrew Johnson would actually be quite I'd say moderate Republican today. Again, they're starting to get more extreme. Ulysses Grant would be a liberal independent along with his good old friend Abraham Lincoln. Rutherford Hayes would also be a liberal independent. So the Republicans those days were liberal independents so far. Oh, James Garfield would be a moderate Democrat. Arthur would be a conservative independent. Okay, so Republicans starting to get a bit conservative. Grover Cleveland would be a moderate Republican. Benjamin Harrison would also be a moderate Democrat. William McKinley would actually be pretty far to the right. Theodore Roosevelt would be a liberal independent. maybe might surprise some people. They might say you could argue he's more left, but he did do a lot of right wing things. Taft is a moderate Republican. Woodrow Wilson is a moderate Republican. Warren Harding would be an extreme Republican. So again, as you can see, as the time goes on, the people are getting more radical. Calvin Coolidge, extreme Republican. Herbert Hoover might actually surprise the people. He wasn't actually that extreme Republican. Franklin D. Roosevelt, as expected, our first extreme Democrat. Harry Truman, a moderate Democrat. Dwight Eisenhower might surprise some people. He would be a liberal independent. JFK would be let me think actually. He'd be a moderate Democrat. LBJ, extreme Democrat, as expected here. Richard Nixon was actually very barely a Republican, conservative independent today. Gerald Ford would be a moderate Republican. Jimmy Carter would be a moderate Democrat. Ronald Reagan would be a far right, which makes sense. He isn't actually that far right, however, might surprise. George W. Bush would be a liberal independent. Again, quite surprising. This one was surprising. Bill Clinton, liberal independent. George W. Bush would be a conservative independent. Very barely. Like father, like son, both are independents, kind of, but they lean differently. Barack Obama, moderate Democrat. Donald Trump would be a extreme Republican. Okay, just as you saw, we are getting more and more extreme, which is, I guess, so you could argue that's a good thing. Like Bernie Sanders supporters, you could say that's a good thing. We're moving more left. But I would like to show you the partisan voting index. We are getting more and more partisan when we vote. We refuse to change our mind. And it's a really bad thing to me. We are getting more and more extreme. This is not good. I'm sharing my opinion, but because it concerns me. But why we are getting so radical. Radical. Yes, you heard me. Radical. We are getting radical. I'm just checking this. Arranged by PVI rank. We are so radical now. If you bring back Ronald Reagan today, he would actually seem moderate. So that is why this is concerning. As you can see, there is a radicalness. Analysis. Okay, so we can see we are getting more radical. And then unlike Vox and Fox News say that only Democrats and only Republicans are getting more radical, that is not true. Both sides are nominating more and more extreme candidates. I can prove this to you. I can prove this to you. Let's do that. 2020 election, by the way. I bet you didn't know this, but Biden is more liberal than Barack Obama. Yes, we are nominating Biden. Okay. Trump was more radical than Mitt Romney. Joe Biden is more radical than Barack Obama. Both candidates. Romney is more radical than John McCain. Obama is more radical than John Kerry. John McCain is not more radical than George W. Bush, but George W. Bush is. So as you can see here, there is a radicalness. We are getting more radical. We are getting more partisan, and it needs to be stopped. Thank you for watching this video.